All right, everybody, thank you for jumping on with us for our weekly Family First Life Tri-State Training Day podcast. We are extremely blessed today. We got what I would call an industry legend on with us today. My good friend Paul McLean from FFL West Coast, currently running the largest agency in the country, doing over $10 million a month. Bro, that's savagery. But I want to give Paul the proper introduction because Paul has been a pillar in this industry since I got in the industry. He's, when I started in this industry, to see Paul, I think you were probably 22, maybe 23 years old, putting up 250, 350 a month in volume with your team. That was like, wow, like, for you to be that age. And I remember a month that you knocked down like 70K in the month. Like, I totally remember that. Like, I felt like that thing went viral, and I was like, holy, like, what is happening? And I could barely write like 15, 20 grand in a month, and you're just striding. And I remember saying, I got to get around this dude, man, because this dude is on fire. And I remember like intentionally reaching out to you. You would fly to Philly for whatever. And I remember sitting down with you at dinner and just picking your brain about, policies and writing and in-home. And you got the Family First Life, dude. And then I watched it firsthand because then I knew who you were. And I was watching you close at an insane clip, running 15 appointments a week. I'm running 30. I'm like, I can't keep up with this dude. Like, this guy's close ratio is ridiculous. And you got the title Mr. Consistency because you'd go out every single week and write 15 grand, and you'd end up in the top 3 to 5 every single year, over $500,000, Hall of Fame, and your agency just kept growing and growing and growing. And because of that consistency, Paul, and because of that leadership trait that you've exemplified over the years, the Monday morning wake-up call was something that was birthed out of that, this mindset of just always being on it, always being positive, always looking to tomorrow. And that was a game changer for us as a company. And I remember, going through that Monday morning wake-up with my guys, and people loved it, and then you dissolved it. And when I saw you drop the video of the Monday Morning Wake Up podcast to come back, I was so excited. So we're talking about a guy who's seen every facet of this business, from selling a lot at a high level to building a massive organization to, just if there's something that's out there, phone script, and just laser-like tactics. And Paul, I appreciate you, bro, because you've made me so much better in this industry just associating with you. And once we became friends, it was just like rubbing shoulders with a giant. So, man, I appreciate you jumping on with me, and it's good to call you partner.
Amen. No doubt about it.
My man.
And the funny thing is, Mark, when you're talking about me writing 70K in a month and that inspired you, well, dude, you writing 70K in many months inspired me. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this business. We really are business partners. And I think that the agents that develop this haughtiness and ego, they really steal from themselves, the favor that people have in their life. Even as we became familiar with each other, I never let the familiarity steal the favor that you had to bring to me in my business, and I remember you being in that, I remember the old company, you coming up and asking questions, and, I remember being 22 and just like trying to not mess up what I was trying to say. Because at the end of the day, really all I had going for me was just discipline and consistency, and then it just worked its way out.
That worked.
But, and then I remember as you came on board, man, and what you did, it's really to dude, you sewed in some new DNA in Family First Life that's there today because of what you did day one. And I remember just sitting there growing my belief in what I could do, and I needed that. As we were going through litigation, lawsuits, and mail houses burning down, and like, where do we get our leads from? And I needed that because I needed to write more than $30,000 a month to friggin' survive. And so I remember watching what you were doing, thinking like, man, I got more in me. Look what Mark's doing, and watching you do 60, 70K many months in a row, and that stretched me in a time, in a period where I needed to be stretched. And then I remember seeing your team grow at such an explosive rate, and that rewired the way I saw you could build this thing. I thought, the pace was, if you grew from $300,000 to $400,000 in a month in a given year, God, that was big because that was big everywhere else. And so, Mark, I never lose, I guess, appreciation for what you sowed into the company day one, because DNA, the first pattern that's being woven throughout an organization, that pattern is what's duplicated and replicated throughout the history. It's that start, and you started and laid that first pattern. And I never forget that, man. A lot of the expectations and belief that people come on to today, that's now in all these different top producers and agency managers, man, it was sowed by you, because it wasn't by me, because I wasn't writing that kind of production. I wasn't growing at the speed that you grew in that first 12 months, man. And so it's a big deal. And I think for everybody on here, you should be thinking about that for your team and organization. Amen. What DNA are you putting into it? Because every FFL's got its DNA. It's got its structure. It's got its patterns. And then you do as well. Every group's got different patterns, and you can see that. There's some teams that are really more heavy on recruiting, and their average issue paid producer is lower. And then you look at, Mark, your team has been just this DNA of like, man, anybody can write $20K a week. I mean, like the producers, the average producer is so high. I remember going to this, really almost any convention, and they get to the top 10, and just everybody's in your group. I'm like, hey guys, we could probably get in the top 10 to 20. That's what we're shooting for. But that's the DNA that you got. And so, I think everybody on here that's starting to build a team, you got to realize how big of a deal it is for what you do, what example you put, because you're starting to weave that first pattern in your organization. And as much as FFL's got its own blanket that people will grab and attract to and get different things from, you do as well. And it's based off of the way you communicate and what you do. And you're going to start to develop that DNA, which is really an exciting thing. It's a blessing, or it could be a curse if you don't. So that's the big responsibility of leadership. And if you're on here and you've got one agent and you're a leader, they're looking to you. Amen. And so what kind of DNA are you infusing into that team at that baby stage? Because when it's grown as an adult, that's what you're going to see. It's kind of like, raise a child the way they shall go. They should not depart from it. But man, it's all fun and games, and you do a little compromise here and there, and all of a sudden they become grown, and you're like, man, what did I create? I got a monster.
Right. So, now that is factual information, and that's really good stuff, man. There's a lot of places we could jump off, man, because you've got this decorated career. I want to start with your business building belief. The idea that you always sold at a high level. I want to know why. Like, why? And then what did you see when you saw the business building opportunity?
Well, I think, Mark, I sold at a high level. For one, I think I'm competitive, and I think everybody has that in them. And so when I look at this thing, and I saw other people producing, which kind of goes back to why it was such a big deal when I saw what you did, Mark, because I really did pull from this belief that, man, I could do it too. And I think that when people get into the business and they start to use comparison as a way to elevate that person and put them on a pedestal, all that does is make you either feel insecure or lazy. Yeah. And so for me, I didn't want that. I didn't let that happen. When I saw that, it drove me. It was like, man, I could do more. It's like the 4-minute mile. So many more people did it after it was done. Amen. And so I think it was competitive. I wanted to produce at a high level because, if other people could do it, I wanted to show myself that I could do it, and it didn't mean it had to happen that same next day, but I knew that if I went through my process, if I did the things I needed to do on a daily basis, that over a period of time that I would be able to get to the high level of production. Also, I wanted to show my team, as I started to build a business. And for me, in the beginning, building a business, Mark, was my kind of long-term vision to become financially free. I remember being 19 and thinking like, man, this is pretty exciting. I'm in a position where over a period of time, I can build true freedom. And I really believed in what we were doing. I believed in the services that we were providing to clients. I loved the fact that it was a service that, unlike, peddling carpet or selling knives, that this makes a true difference. And so when I was out there, I love what position that allowed me to take this doctor position where I have more value to offer than the value of a paycheck. Like, I've got the upper hand, and I love how much fun that was to be able to kind of to do that. And to me, that was fun, And then when it came to building a business, I saw the opportunity that it gave everybody. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from, age, background, male, female, ethnicity. None of that mattered. That anybody had the same opportunity, the same shot to be successful. And that was invigorating to me, to be able to say, hey, if I invite somebody to take a look at the Family First Life opportunity, in 90 days, man, their life could be different, not because of what I did, but because of an invitation for them to look at it.
Wow. And
so the selling at a high level and the building of the business, my selling at the high level was, I knew it was my responsibility to give an example for my agents to follow. And I realized early on that, man, a lot of the agents do half of what I do right, and they do double what I do wrong. And so I needed to show this intensity, this attitude of like, man, we ain't messing around. Like, it ain't that big of a deal. And I love how Sean's put that in place too, with like, hey, you got cancer? Let's roll.
Right.
But yeah. I just knew how hard that was. And so for me, I stepped in and embraced the responsibility of leadership in building the business. And that kind of helped me go out there and build consistency, because I had people looking to me. And I wanted to be the one that was out in the front, leading the pack by what I was doing and how I was doing it. And so that way, every day they were a little bit better because of my example. And in building the business, it was just exciting, especially now, because you look at, it goes back to like understanding as a producer that the client is benefiting. They're the benefactor for you to call them and go see them, because everybody in America needs life insurance. So every person that's breathing is really in a need for what your service is providing.
Right.
But people that raise their hand and say, I want to get the coverage, that, man, you've got, they're going to be better off for meeting you than you are for meeting them.
Wow.
Like, you're doing them a favor. And now Family First Life, man, and we didn't always have this working at other IMOs, but when you talk to an agent or anybody, the opportunity you have with comp and all these other things, like them joining your team is better for them than it is for you.
Right.
Like, it's like, I like what Saban said with Alabama. He's like, man, you could either play for Alabama and win a championship, or you can play for another team and watch us win a championship. I mean, that's a pretty easy recruiting technique. And now, when agents are recruiting these teams that are growing, they know that, man, I'm doing you a favor to give you this opportunity, because you're not going to get it anywhere else. And that gives you this good posture, man, like, where you're the doctor, they're the patient in that aspect as well, because they can't get anything better. And so, man, it's just fun. And I think if you see it that way, it gives you the right posture to attract the right people, to make higher closes and sell more and to hire more. When you understand that you're in a position where you can bless people with an invitation or with an opportunity to purchase life insurance. It's a fun thing to be positioned like that.
I love the mindset, dude. And I don't think I've ever heard you, maybe I have, but not at this level or this intensity, doctor, patient, on both sides. That's very strong. I need the psychology, because in 2015, 16, 17, I'm like, how is he closing at this rate? Like, how? How does he see 15 families and close 14? And I think that would be some value there. But I think what you're saying is why, but I need a little more color for the person that's out there and wants to close at a higher rate. What is some of the psychology that you take into this doctor-patient role and the privilege that you're there to help them? They're not privileged. You're not privileged to see them. They're privileged to see you. Can you go a little bit deeper on that, Paul?
Absolutely, man. So I think when it first starts with you being so convicted in how you see yourself, people they understand the doctor-patient analogy. It's easy to get that. But to live it, you have to be so convicted in the fact that it's true for you. So when I got out of my car, in my mind, I had to visualize them passing away and how this service will change your life when that event happens, and being convicted in the fact that it can happen, and reminding myself of the fact that there's somebody that dies every day. There's somebody that probably died within 5-mile radius of where I'm at right now. It's a real thing. And even reminding myself of stories of others that I've heard of them dealing with a client that passed 3 weeks after they left their house, until I got my own stories and it was more real, and I would remind myself of that. But if you, before you get out of your car, if you can just really buy into that and the fact that, yes, you need a paycheck, and it's harder to do that when you need a paycheck desperately, which everybody does. When I started at FFL, it was, I need to get paid. But when you can sit there and really shelf all those feelings of your need and survival, and you can compartmentalize that, and then really put your focus on the fact that you're stepping in, just like the doctor, man. When you sit with the doctor, I remember my mom, she would be in the waiting room and she'd be like, man, this fool making us wait. I'm going to tell him when he sees us, he thinks we got stuff to do. And really all she needed to go do is watch soap operas, but she was mad. She didn't want to miss all my children. And she's like, he's making us wait. I'm going to say something when I see him. We'd be walking back with the nurse, and she'd be like, all right, make sure when he says how you feel, you just start coughing. We need to get that antibiotic. She was like, I ain't coming for nothing, boy. And so we'd be sitting there, and when he got done, she would never say nothing, by the way. Because what he had to offer, she needed so much more. And see, the psychology is, when have you ever sat with a doctor and you're thinking like, man, you're just selling me. You're just making money. You're just making money. You don't think that. Right. And when you're done, you say, thank you so much. He doesn't thank you for coming in. You thank him. and that's how it is. And so I thought, man, if a doctor's, we're so, we see it like that so much so that we don't realize that if we don't show up, the doctor don't get paid. He still needs the patient. Right. But we don't ever see it like that. And he's given us, it could be an antibiotic or whatever, but we're sitting with the client. And if we don't help them, when they die, they go through the two hardest things they're ever going to deal with in their entire life. One, the loss of a loved one. The second one is financial devastation. And they're going to go through them at the exact same time. Wow. And the more you can have that in your mind, now when you sit with the client, it's not necessarily what you're saying, all these word tracks and stuff like that, but how you're saying them is going to come across in an attractive way. It's going to come across in a way that says, this ain't about me. Because the client, what's most disgusting or unattractive is when it's all about you. But when you go in there and it's about them, then you've got the art of selling, so to speak, because you know that you're in control and it's not them. And so now anytime that they say something, Mark, objection or whatever you want to call it, I go back to who I am, and I'm able to communicate in such a way that reveals that I'm the doctor and the patient. And so I'm starting to get their perspective more in line with who I am. And so objections actually fuel the sell, because I'm able to use that to really clarify that, and you need this, not me. And so if a client gives an objection, rather that's something that says, we want to think about whatever it is, we want to shop around, or we got to look at our budget and get back to in a month, whatever that may be, I can use that to articulate who I am. If they say, man, we got to figure out our bills. We don't know what they look like. We just moved in. I can sit back and say, okay, well, let me first relate to them, because that's the first thing is to connect. And I can say, Mark, man, I understand exactly how you feel. In fact, man, every client of mine that I sit with every day feels the same way as you do. They're just getting a house, and you're trying to figure things out. So I understand. And what I found is this: there's a lot of uncertainties that you've got going on. You bills. What is this going to be? What is that going to be? But the one thing that's certain, the one thing that we can be certain of, and I hear this from every client, is that your family, your wife, your 2 little kids running around, they're the number one priority. That's the one thing that we can never lose certainty of. You're certain of it, I'm certain of it. And so what everybody says and what everybody, what I found is that they know that they have to put that into place first, because that's priority number one, and then fit everything else around that. And I'm sure you'd agree that that makes the most sense for you and your family, like it does everybody. And so, Mark, what we'll go ahead and do is this. We can't make a decision today because we don't know if we're going to qualify. Obviously, our hope is that they do say yes. Grab your driver's license. We'll go ahead and pick this option here. We can tweak and adjust if they do qualify. We'll go ahead and grab your driver's license. So I can do that because
I want to buy a policy right now, dude.
but you know what I mean? Like I can do that because I know that you need what I have to offer. And so when I sit back, I used to feel like I was getting pushed against a wall. When I was getting an injection, I had to fight back. I'm like, man, oh shoot, they gave me that. How do I come? Opposed to, no, man, like how can I just communicate with them in such a way that gets them to understand that they need this and it's not about me. And that's just the way it is throughout the whole process. My sales presentation, if you want to call it that, really became me just communicating in such a way where they could see me as a person that was there to serve and help them, but I didn't need to. I was going out of my way to help them. I was busy. I had many families to go see, and it was really their benefit that I was sitting there. And at the end of the day, them getting a policy was for their own good. It wasn't for mine.
Right.
And so everything about my communication came from that. But guys, again, it starts back and to build the right conviction in the fact that that is the reality. You'll understand it, but you won't be able to live it and portray it unless you really go into that house knowing that it's for their betterment. And so then you're not going in feeling kind of so nervous and unsure. You go in with a different confidence because, no matter what I say and how new I am, they need this.
Right.
They need this. I don't have to be certified with 3 certifications in CPR. If you're drowning, you want me to be on you. I can have a half a certification. You're dying. Like you saved me. I don't say, well,
half a certification.
I only have 1 certification. I can't help you. Let me get back to you. You're like, dude, we're done. Come on. That's kind of how you got to see this thing. You don't need multiple experiences. You got a dang license. They need you.
Right.
That's how you got to see it.
That's fantastic. And I think that would help Andy. It's going to help the newest producer listening to this podcast because, that's what people are looking for, man. Confidence. And what you're saying is conversations how you get confidence. How do you get confidence talking to your brother? How do you get confidence talking to your mother? How do you get confidence talking to your best friend? Conversation. It's just a conversation. All we're doing is talking about the value of why I'm here and you filled this out. So that's amazing. And I wish I would have asked you this 5 years ago because it would have helped my close ratio. So, you have the largest agency in all of Family First Life, and you're helping to drive what is, this behemoth and integrity marketing group and everything that's going along with that. When you look at agencies in your agency, so leaders inside your group that are going after it, what are some of the traits that you see that are commonalities for SVPs, EVPs, board members that are growing like crazy?
Yeah, great question, man. And the one thing I want to spend some time on that question because that's a phenomenal question. I think it's something that everybody should be looking for commonalities as a top producer and top managers growing, because at the end of the day, there is so many commonalities. And the more you're plugged into podcasts like this, Mark, the more you're going to really unmask what those are. And through repetition of message, you're going to start to really embody those. You're going to start to develop those thought processes and patterns. And this is the one thing I want to say as I wrap up. The other thing I was thinking about is when you're plugged into all these calls and podcasts and it just consumes you, not in income producing time, but like late at night, early in the morning, drive time, where it's just what you consume. That's such a big deal. I mean, I read this story about this nurse that was going through, what is that called, where the babies are born and they're put into the
NICU.
NICU.
Yeah.
So she's walking through the NICU and she notices that this baby, and she walks by that this baby's got like kind of blotchy skin, and she catches her eye, and she notices that instead of like a dot of blood, there's like a blotch of crimson, and so that kind of throws a trigger, and then she starts looking at it, and the belly's kind of a little bit protruding, and so she's like, man, let's test this baby. So they find out the baby had this crazy virus, and they're able to really save the baby's life. The baby was going to die. She didn't. And in an interview, they asked, how did you, like, all these other nurses walk by, like the baby had been there for a while. There was tons of nurses walking by in this NICU. Like, how did you? And she said, well, in my mind, I have such a clear narrative and picture of what a healthy baby looks like. The moment I walk by and I see something that doesn't line up with that, it throws a trigger off. And in my mind, it starts to go like, well, that ain't right. And then I start to, all these other things that are not right start to be magnified and highlighted. And then I'm able to say, okay, we got to do something here. And see, that's got to be the goal for everybody when it comes to being a top producer. When you're plugged in and listening to, Mark, you and all these people you have on these podcasts, what it does is it gets you the right picture of who you are when it comes to this client-patient or client and agent relationship, and the client or the agent and new hire relationship and manager. It gets you that clear picture. And so when you sit with the home or in the home and you go through the days of, and it can even be a clear picture of what a successful schedule looks like. The more you have that in mind, the more you're able to gauge deviation, knowing in fact you are off, and you can correct it fast, because everybody in this business deals with the exact same thing. Series of no sales. All of a sudden a month where it's like, hey, is anybody going to keep their policy? Series of chargebacks, series of agents falling. Everybody deals with it. Nobody's afflicted with that condition. But it's the response to those things that dictates your success or failure that you're going to have in the following week. And it's that picture that you have in your mind. And so I think, for one, as you look at these top managers and VPs and board that are growing at a fast rate, I think, for one, they have work ethic. That's the first thing. They freaking work. No doubt. It's not this placation. They want, and how do you know? And they want accountability. Like they want to reach out and have conversations that are going to be challenging and empowering from the person they're working with. Like if I'm working with you, Mark, I want to have conversations. I'm trying to get in your calendar and schedule. I'm trying to make my head stand above the crowd by doing the little bit extra. If there's a meeting at 8, I'm there at 6. I'm showing you, I want accountability. I want relationships. So a lot of these teams that I'm working with, man, they intentionally, opposed to a lot of people that are like, they're kind of going through in the crowd and they complain, well, I don't have no time with that person. Well, fool, because you're crawling in the crowd. And you really don't even want the time with the person. You don't want the accountability because you're not showing it. So they have work ethic. The second thing is they have intelligence. Like they're on the calls. They're building up their business acumen. They're associating day in and day out through podcasts and calls to build a different thought process. Man, I'm only going to grow as much next year as my thought process grows this year.
Wow.
And so they're developing and growing their intelligence. And then the third thing is, man, they have a high level of gratitude and appreciation. They're just grateful. And I think I heard this from you, Mark. I think I heard, in fact, I think. These are the three things that you said made a difference. And I came up with the acronym WIG, just so I wouldn't forget. Work ethic, intelligence, and gratitude.
That's strong.
And that's something I teach the team. But,
I like WIG.
these are the things that you're doing. And the person that's wearing one of those, those wigs that stand out, you see them. And then you want to build that relationship. And so, and I just came up with that right now.
You are a trip.
Because I'll tell you what, if I was wearing a wig right now, you would notice, Mark. And so, but that's what you're looking for. What kind of wig are you wearing? Work ethic, intelligence, and gratitude. Those are the ones that are grown, man. Yeah, because their team's doing the same thing.
It's true.
They're grateful. You want to work with them. I want to serve. It's the people that, there's an unfair advantage in this business. I give it to people all the time. So you shouldn't. That's bullcrap, dude. I'm glad that the Marriott gives me an unfair advantage when I check in because I spend so much dang money with them.
Right, correct.
But I can check in at 8 a.m. or check out at 9 p.m. because the status I like that. That's how it is here too. You should get your status up as far as that relationship with the person that can serve you best. And that comes from work ethic, intelligence, and gratitude. And so, man, they're doing a lot of that, man. It's nonstop hiring, recruiting. The business is not, they're not in the business, man. The business is in them. They can't not help but think about it, focus on it, talk about it. It's just in the seeds that they're throwing. There's so many different seeds that they're throwing. invitations, talking to Uber driver, talking about social media, posting on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, hiring recruiting leads, having recruiting leads, Zipper. They're doing everything. They're throwing so many seeds that there's seeds popping up that they didn't even expect to pop up, but it don't matter. They're popping up, and their business is growing because of that.
That's good, man. I'm like in a coma. I'm like just listening, like I'm watching my favorite TV show. I mean, this is just so good. All right, so let's transition. I think this is a smooth segment to the next smooth transition to the next segment is Integrity Marketing Group. So the idea that they are this massive player in the space and they're happy to purchase and partner with companies that have good profitability and are growing. And a lot of the FFL partners and future FFL partners are some of your men and women. So what did you see when that became a reality to us at FFL? And how is that playing itself out now into the future? I feel like the growth. I mean, how much do y'all grow by? Like 2 million every month? I mean, it's just like crazy. Like, so I'd love to hear it from your perspective because you're literally like watching the whole thing from like a blimp, and just I want to hear what you have to say about it.
I think, dude, for one, when I saw it, I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. You know what I mean? I'm like, what is this gonna mean? And as I got closer to it, I like more of what I was seeing, and it's something that I don't think I ever thought was possible, Mark. I don't think you ever thought was possible.
I did not.
You know, I kind of thought I was just always going to sell insurance and then build a business and always build a business, and but it really gives you an opportunity to build true legacy. You know, where you can. And it's just funny, man. I guess the best way I can look at it is, you know, a producer that hits high levels, it's because it becomes, when it's about the client and they really just don't care no more, you know, meaning that they just don't care. Like the client, you care about the client, you want to help the client, but what the client does or doesn't do, it doesn't make a difference to you. That freedom allows you to do so much better. And that's kind of what the partnership and integrity has done as far as a business standpoint, I think, for myself and maybe others, where you just start making you're making better decisions and choices, and you're almost working harder because it doesn't matter so much. There's no more chips on the table. Right. And so a lot of the decisions and choices that I made, I should have made before, right, but I didn't make because it was just a different viewpoint. It was like, well, man, I don't want to because of that risk, or what if this doesn't? Right. And now it's just like I'm free to make the choices I should have made before, whether that's staffing or time or schedule or structure. Even working with agents, it's like, man, this freedom of like, man, do it or don't do it. Now I love you and I care about you, but before I was like trying to will people to do it. Man, the business needs to grow, and in my mind, I need to help you. It was just different, you know. And I think also understanding what that feels like, understanding what that's meant for my family. I really feel like I have an obligation, and maybe not even an obligation, I think maybe even a privilege to go out there and give people the same opportunity. And so I couldn't be more excited to sit back and call more people on my team true partners. Yeah. You know, like Mark, you're a true partner now. We're managing partners with Integrity Marketing Group. And what a beautiful thing to be able to go out there and help people do the exact same thing. And so I don't know, maybe that's been some of the things that have changed, because I can't point to anything other than the feeling I have now is different than the feeling I had before. Yeah, man. And I think the choices I make now are different than the choices I was making before because of that.
Dude, I feel the exact same way. I can't even. I like have these epiphany moments sometimes throughout the day. Like, wow. Like, you know, just the thing is, Paul, you can't be doing this as long as we've been doing it and grow businesses and have a feel for people and not know what to do to help it grow further. No, we might not know everything, but not know what to do to help it grow further. But the cost limitation of knowing what to do and being afraid, gun shy, or just uncertain of what if this doesn't work out? Like, what if I spend this $10,000 on this marketing engine and it doesn't work out? That's
Right.
10 G's. I mean, like, I ain't got, who has that to risk? Now, obviously, we've taken many risks because otherwise we wouldn't be here. But and the more successful you become, I guess, at least for me, I saw the less risk I actually wanted to take, because it was like when I had nothing to lose, it was like, boom, throw it all on the table. Let's throw everything, into lose all my inhibitions and let's just go at it.
Right.
But the more that there was something there, the more I had, the psychology of, whoa, wait, what if, and it's like, well, that's not how we got here. But what if? Like, so there's just so much mental games you play with yourself, and then integrity comes in and says, we believe that you know what you're doing. We believe that you can grow this 4 to 6x in 3 years. We'll back it. I'm like, for real? Because I love that. And then it's like, it's crazy what you can do now, and just, again, it does free you up. Like, guys, if you're gonna do it. If you're not, you're not. It's okay. I'm gonna find 100 more people in the next week. Like, I just let me know if it's you or not. Because if it is, some of those people might be yours, and if it's not, there might be someone else's. It's not a big deal, man. I love you. It's just, it's unbelievable that we have the ability to do that. And I love the fact that other people have the exact same ability, like to see Nick and Grady and Eric and Ryan and, just these guys coming on, and then new guys it's just crazy to see what people's belief level has gone to. Can you speak to that a little bit, the belief level? Because, dude, there were times building this business where the staggering effect or the lack of momentum or the lack of speed would affect somebody in like a year's time or 2 years' time, and it's just like, these guys been at these numbers for a while. It's not growing like it is now. Then you put integrity at the finish line, and it's like people are sprinting. Can you talk about the integrity effect, the integrity factor for a second?
Well, dude, I think what you just said, Mark, was so good, by the way. I mean, like, and I never even thought about it like that. Like, you build it so much to a point where maybe it exceeds your expectation, and you go from almost like doing what you did to build it to protecting it. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that almost happens subconsciously. Thinking back, as you said, I think this is exactly where I was at. It's like, can I just protect what I've got? Can I salvage it? And because it was more than I thought I would ever have. Right. And so maybe my limited belief, and I don't know, but I think that was spot on. And I believe, like, with integrity effect, it's giving somebody a bigger why. I think when you have a bigger reason, you're gonna do things, you're gonna take risks, and you're gonna leave less what ifs on the table. I had Evan on the Monday Morning Wake Up podcast. It'll be this Monday, and he's a guy that went from like really zero production in July, and now he's issue paying $70,000 a month. He's in his early 20s. His team did 120, and he had one of the best analogies I've heard. He said, "Man, I just started taking more what ifs off the table." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, the whole like, well, what if I would have hired a staff? Or what if I would have moved? Or what if I would have ran that travel trip? Or what if he said, I didn't want to leave what ifs on the table because the what ifs would eventually left there long enough would turn into regret. And I was like, that's pretty good, man. And I think what ifs strangle your, when those are there, that's what strangles your belief. And so what feeds your belief is seeing others do it and then having an understanding that you could do it too. There's nothing special about it. And I think Family First Life's done such a great job in making that a part of the DNA makeup that, man, you're not. There's no, I'm just a special person here. And if you think that, I love the fact that the immunity is so built up in this body that's so high that if you are that, man, it kicks you right out. Boom! Like, what happened to that person? And he was a virus.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. But I think you take less what ifs on the table. Like, if you can have less what ifs, like, what if I would have done this? What if I would have done that? What if I, and you realize that, let me just go all in for a period of time and then see what fruit can be produced, and not look up and start judging outcomes and results. It's a process to be had. And I think sometimes the process, the longer it takes for you to start seeing results that you think you should see, and maybe you should have saw, like, well, man, I hired a staff, but I still haven't grown that much yet, or I hired 2 staff and I still haven't, and all that stuff, and realize that, man, it's a process. Everybody's dealt with that process.
Right, sure.
But I think the longer you start seeing the payoffs from the pain of the process, and that gap is disappointment and discouragement. And I think that the enemy can use that to distort the reality that you can be an integrity partner, and that you can have success. And you just got to reconfirm yourself and build a belief that, no, this is a necessary part of the process, and I'll eventually see the payoff. Let me just continue to go to work, plug into the calls, get some feedback, make some course corrections, get the picture of what success looks like clear in my head, so I know my deviation, what I need to tweak, adjust to get better. Let me just keep moving forward and moving ahead. And I think eventually you're going to start to have these evidences show up as you start to see outcomes, and those really serve as validating factors. And in fact, you can get there. Mm-hmm. And so I think you just have to be patient and know that there's a process to be had, and don't let a lack of seeing results be distortion of the truth that you can be successful.
Yes.
You got to just continue to build it up and let you know that there is a process to be had. And I think that's probably some important things for everybody, because everybody on here, you're engaged in a process currently, regardless if you're an integrity partner or you're a brand new agent or you're a VP. Your process is, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to go to. Yes. And that gap, you just got to realize that that's the way it's going to be.
Dude, you're just an encyclopedia. I could do this forever. I want to talk about, I remember being in Malibu in LA with you, and we were at that Maxwell event, and I remember talking about the Monday morning wake up call. And I remember you saying, like, this is my calling. Like, and this calling is like this calling of breathing life into people, speaking life into people. And, I know a lot of it's foundational and biblical and spiritual, but you do such a great job at it. And I want to know, first off, thank you for bringing back the Monday morning wake up call, because I believe that is your calling. And I believe you are one of the best I know that do that. That comes from this place of just insane optimism, insane positivity, and just everyone's got a shot. So I think that's a huge gift that you pack. What was in your thought process with that, and what do you see with the Monday morning wake up call moving forward?
Well, I think Mark, that this business is as much, if not more, mental than it is mechanical, and we have so many top producers and top people that can give practical things and what to do and how to do it. And I just know for me, mindset is such a big deal. I think for everybody that, if you can have your mind right and understand thoughts and how to build yourself up, that it means all the world to a person. And so, I suck at a lot of things, but, I think one of the gifts that God gave me was the ability to communicate and encourage and exhortation, to be able to just let people know that, for one, they are God's creation, that everybody is created for greatness. And a lot of times lies that you've got in your mind hold you back from really fulfilling the potential that God has for you. And I love this business because it has an unlimited potential capacity for people to grow and develop and build a great business. But I think a lot of times that mindset keeps them lidded from going out there and experiencing these new levels. And so, the mindset behind that was, to really kind of intentionally sit back and say, hey, how can we really attack the mindset thing each week to give something for people to chew on, to really kind of unmask and unveil different things that maybe is holding back. That could be thought processes, belief systems, perspectives, expectations,
sure.
How they view themselves, how they view others. And that was a goal. So that way each week as they, hop on there, maybe that 30, 40 minutes, it frees them up to go out there and actually perform at the highest level, because I think that everybody, has these different chains and limitations that they put on themselves when it comes to mindset. And sometimes we don't even know what that is,
sure.
But we're going through the exact same things that we've always gone through. Like you're repeating the past because, it's just emotions that you feel. You wake up feeling a certain way and you don't really realize that you're coloring the future based off the lens of the past. And so if you can identify and give yourself a new vision of who you are, what you can do, and see it that way, well, now you've got a new lens on how you can approach each day. And so, the goal was to get people on that, like yourself, Mark, that have that mindset, to develop that mindset, and that can speak to that as well. So doing some interviews about specific mindset stuff and practical things to go out there and put into place to grow and develop yourself, because you are where you're at because of your attitude, the way you think and the way you feel about yourself and about your position. So that was kind of thought process, man. And I really am excited each and every week to sit back and think about different things to attack and to talk about. And my goal really is to just do my best to serve others and help them get better and grow in those areas.
I love you, man. I do. I appreciate everything you've dropped on this. I'm excited about the future. It's crazy. It's just everything in front of us is just crazy. There's so much space and opportunity for anybody who wants to go after this thing. Family First Life has been a tremendous platform for that. Paul, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for sharing. We got to do this again. I feel like I got another, tank to unload here, but for the purposes of time and just how great this was, we'll wrap. But I appreciate you, man, jumping on.
Hey, I appreciate you, Mark. More than you know, dude. You made a big difference on, my agency, my growth, my family, and the relationship we have, man. It's pretty cool to be in business where you can develop friendships that are long lasting. I consider you a business partner, but also maybe more important, a great friend. And so I'm excited about the future as well in both of those arenas, man.
Yes, sir. I'll see you in a few. But thank you, everybody, for jumping on. Make it a big week. God bless.